The sun hung low over the horizon, spilling warm gold across the Apache settlement as traders and families moved through the open space between the lodges. It was the time of year when travelers from distant regions arrived to barter horse tack, leatherwork, fabrics, knives, herbs, and sometimes even stories. Among them was Apacha, a seasoned horse breeder known not only for the quality of his mares, but for his honest dealings and quiet, steady manner. He had visited many tribes and settlements, but something in the energy of this camp always drew him back: its rhythm, its mountains, its people. Apache stood beside his small trading tent, organizing rolls of cloth he had brought from a distant ranching town. The fabrics hung over a wooden beam, catching the sunlight: earthy browns, sky blues, soft ochres, and a rare dark red piece he saved for special trades. As he worked, he noticed people passing by with curious glances, admiring the unusual colors he carried. He was arranging the last fabric when he felt someone stop in front of him. He turned and froze. A young Apache woman stood there, straight-backed and calm, her presence as striking as the colors of the evening sky. She wore a beautifully crafted dress, stitched from a mixture of soft buckskin and the very fabrics he had sold in previous seasons. But what caught Apache's attention wasn't the dress, it was the woman. Her name, he later learned, was Nalin, though few spoke it openly. She carried herself with a mixture of shyness and quiet confidence, as though her thoughts were always deeper than the words she chose to speak. Her dark hair fell over her shoulders, adorned with a small, hand-woven thread of turquoise color, simple but meaningful. Nalin stood silently for a moment, studying him. Apache waited, unsure what she would say. Finally, she stepped closer, turning slightly so that the light caught her dress more clearly. "Does this dress fit me?" she asked, her voice soft but unmistakably direct. Apache blinked. Of all the questions he thought she might ask about the fabrics, the price, the stitching, he did not expect that one. Her tone wasn't playful or flirtatious. It was sincere, almost vulnerable, like someone who had put her heart into something and needed to know whether it was seen. He opened his mouth to speak, intending to give a polite, respectful answer, something appropriate and measured. But instead, the truth escaped before he could stop it. I can't stop looking at you." Silence fell between them as quick and sharp as a blade. Nalin's eyes widened slightly. Not with anger, but surprise, soft, warm surprise. For a heartbeat, she looked like someone who had expected criticism and instead received something far more dangerous: admiration. Behind them, a few of the elder women paused their weaving. The children who had been running nearby slowed, sensing the sudden tension in the air. Even the traders a few tents away lifted their heads, as if the wind itself carried the unexpected confession to them. Apache felt heat rise to his face. He wasn't the type to speak carelessly, and he certainly wasn't the type to embarrass a woman in public. He opened his mouth to correct himself, to apologize, but Nalin spoke first. She didn't scold him. She didn't walk away. Instead, she simply held his gaze for a moment longer, as though trying to understand the weight behind his words. Her expression was unreadable, somewhere between confusion, curiosity, and something he couldn't name. Apache swallowed, unsure if he had just made a terrible mistake. Then Nalin looked down, gently smoothing a hand over the fabric of her dress. Not hiding, not ashamed, simply thinking. The moment lingered, stretched, and settled into the foundation of something neither of them understood, yet but both felt. Apache stood there, heart pounding harder than it ever did while breaking wild horses. He wished he could take the words back, or at least control how loudly they had escaped him. But it was too late. The camp around him had grown strangely attentive, as if everyone were pretending not to watch while absolutely watching. Nalin lifted her gaze again, and when her eyes met his, Apacha felt a jolt, not fear, not embarrassment, but something quieter and deeper. Her eyes were warm, thoughtful, shining with a kind of intelligence that made a man choose his words carefully. And he had not been careful. "I didn't mean," Apacha began. "Yes," Nalin said softly, interrupting him. "You did." Her words weren't accusing. They weren't mocking. They simply told the truth. She had an unshakable way of saying things, as if she saw through the outer layers of a person straight into the part that mattered. Apacha shifted where he stood. "I meant to say the dress suits you. That's all." Nalin tilted her head. "But that is not what you said." He had no defense. His own voice had betrayed him. Before he could attempt another explanation, Nalin did something unexpected. She took a small step closer. Not enough to invade his space, but enough for him to notice the delicate scent of sage and smoke that clung to her skin. Enough for him to hear the slight tremor in her breath. "Why did you say it like that?" she asked quietly. Apacha swallowed. He could lie. He could offer a polite answer. But something about her honesty, her bravery in asking, made lying feel like disrespect. "Said it because it was the truth," he admitted in a low voice. Nalin blinked. Once, slowly, almost as if the sincerity of his answer carried more weight than the words themselves. As if she was not used to such plain honesty. From across the clearing, an older woman called Nalin's name. She didn't look back. She kept her eyes on Apacha, her face unreadable but not cold. "You should not say such things openly," she murmured, almost whispering. "People will misunderstand," Apacha nodded. "I know. I didn't plan to. It just happened." A faint smile touched the corner of her lips, so quick it almost vanished before he could be sure it existed. Something about his awkwardness seemed to soften her expression, as though she found a strange comfort in it. Nalin turned a little, letting the evening light fall across her dress again. "I made this myself," she said. "Every stitch. Every bead. No one has seen it before today." Apache's chest tightened. That explained her question. She hadn't been fishing for compliments. She had been searching for truth, real truth, not empty approval. "It's beautiful," he said firmly. "And does it fit me?" she asked again. This time, Apacha chose his words with care. He stepped back slightly, giving her the respect of distance. "Yes," he said. "It fits you perfectly. Like you designed it for yourself, not for others to judge." Nalin studied him for a long breath, weighing his words. Then she nodded, as if accepting something inside herself, something she had doubted until this moment. But calm never lasted long in a camp, full of eyes and ears. A tall shadow fell across them. A strong voice cut through the air. "Nalin." They both turned. Standing just behind her was the chief, her uncle, known for his sharp judgment and quick temper when it came to protecting his people. His eyes moved from Nalin to Apacha and stopped there, narrowing with a mix of curiosity and scrutiny. Apacha felt his muscles tighten. Whatever came next would decide whether his accidental confession would bring trouble or something far more complicated. "Come," the chief said. I heard words. The entire camp seemed to hold its breath. Apacha straightened his shoulders. It was time to answer for the truth. He had spoken. The chief's presence changed everything. His arrival was like a sudden shift in the wind, quiet but carrying enough weight to alter the entire atmosphere around Apacha and Nalin. Conversation slowed. People pretended to mind their own business while listening with sharpened curiosity. Even the horses tied behind the trading tents lifted their heads at the tension settling over the clearing. Takota was a man whose authority didn't need to be announced. It simply existed. Tall, broad, with streaks of gray running through his thick black hair. He had a reputation for seeing through every lie, every masked intention. His tribe respected him fiercely and feared him too, especially young men who dared to speak boldly to women under his protection. Nalin lowered her gaze respectfully. "Uncle." Dakota nodded to her, though his eyes lingered only briefly before fixing fully on Apacha. "You spoke words that reached my ears," the chief said. "Words said to my niece." Apacha felt his spine stiffen. He forced himself not to look away. "I didn't mean to disrespect her." "Yet you did speak," the chief replied. "And the camp heard?" Apache's jaw clenched. There was no point denying it. His accidental confession, "I can't stop looking at you," had floated through the air like embers on the wind, landing in places he never intended. Dakota took a step closer. Not threatening, but deliberate. "Tell me, trader of horses," he said. "What did you mean?" Nalin inhaled sharply. "Uncle," Dakota lifted a hand. "You asked the question. Let him answer." There was no hostility in his tone, only expectation. Judgment would follow after. Apacha looked at Nalin. She held her breath, torn between embarrassment and fear for him. In her eyes, he saw something else to trust. Quiet but unmistakable, he addressed the chief. She asked if the dress fit her. "It caught me by surprise. I wanted to say it looked good." But the truth came out before the polite answer did. Dakota raised a brow. "And the truth was that you could not stop looking at her?" "Yes," Apache said simply. Some men would have stumbled, added excuses, or softened the truth. Apache didn't. His honesty came out like a steady river unbroken, unashamed. Takoda studied him carefully. "Why? Was it the dress that captured your gaze?" Apache shook his head. "No, it was her." The chief's eyes narrowed, but not in anger. In evaluation. He was a man who understood sincerity when he heard it. Nalin looked at Apache, then really looked not as a stranger or a traitor, but as someone who had spoken truth when he could have hidden behind politeness. Takoda shifted his attention to his niece. "Nalin, did you show him the dress to seek his approval?" Nalin looked startled by the question. "No, uncle. I wanted an honest answer." "Then you received one," Dakota said. He turned back to Apacha. "But honesty carries weight. Here, words have consequences. Our people judge a man by the truth he speaks and the way he speaks it." Apache nodded once. "I accept that." For a long moment, Dakota remained silent, analyzing him with the quiet precision of a chief who had seen many men, some honorable, some dangerous, few truly sincere. Finally, he spoke. "If your eyes follow her because of beauty alone, it is foolishness. Beauty fades. But if they follow her because you see who she is, that is different." Apache met his gaze head on. "I saw her effort, her skill, her pride in what she created. That is what drew my eyes." Dakota's stern expression shifted slightly, the faintest softening at the edges. Behind them, whispers rippled through the camp. Nobody expected this calm, measured exchange from the chief. After a long silence, Dakota gave a single nod. "I will speak with her. And I will speak with you again." It wasn't punishment. It wasn't approval. It was possibility. The chief turned and walked a few steps away, but before leaving, he paused, glancing back with a gaze that held both warning and curiosity. "Apache," he said quietly, "be careful where your eyes rest. In this camp, a look can become a promise." Then he disappeared into the crowd, leaving Apache and Nalin standing together closer than before, and yet on the edge of something neither had planned for. When Chief Dakota walked away, the air between Nalin and Apache felt heavier than before, weighted not with fear, but with the consequences of honesty neither of them expected to reveal so soon. The camp slowly returned to its rhythm. Women resumed weaving. Men continued sharpening tools, tending fires, or preparing for the evening meal. But every now and then, someone glanced over, whispering behind a hand. Not cruel whispers, curious ones. Surprised ones. Because it wasn't every day a quiet horse breeder accidentally told the chief's niece that he couldn't stop looking at her. Nalin finally exhaled. She hadn't realized she had been holding her breath. "You spoke very boldly," she murmured. Her eyes drifting to the ground, Apacha rubbed the back of his neck, still feeling the embarrassment boiling under his skin. "I didn't mean to speak boldly. I just didn't think." "That is what makes it bold," she said. And he couldn't tell whether she was teasing or simply stating a fact. He studied her for a moment, really studied her. The way he had before the truth slipped out. Nalin avoided his gaze at first, fidgeting with the edge of her dress as though unsure what to do with her hands. But the faint pink in her cheeks betrayed what she tried to hide. "Nalin," Apacha said gently, "I'm sorry if I embarrassed you." Her eyes lifted. "You didn't embarrass me. You surprised me." She paused. "No one ever looks at me that way." He frowned. How could they not? Nalin hesitated. Then she took a slow breath, as though deciding whether to reveal something deeply personal. "I make dresses, beadwork, designs. But people don't take it seriously," she admitted. "Some say it's a childish hobby. Others say it's not useful. Even Uncle believes I should focus on other skills." She glanced at the stitching on her sleeve. "So when I showed you the dress, I was prepared for criticism. And instead," Apache said, "you got a fool with no self-control." That made her laugh, a soft, warm sound that eased the tension like sunlight cutting through clouds. "Not a fool," she corrected. "Someone who spoke without fear." He shook his head. "I was afraid. Still am." His eyes flicked toward where the chief had gone. "Your uncle is a brave man to speak to." "Brave?" Nalin smiled faintly. "He is terrifying." Apacha chuckled despite himself. The silence that followed wasn't uncomfortable. It felt like an invitation, one of those rare moments when two strangers begin to understand each other, not through long conversations, but through sincerity exchanged in small, delicate pieces. Nalin's voice softened. "When you spoke to my uncle, why did you answer so honestly? Most men would have lied." "Because you deserve the truth," Apacha said. She blinked, startled by the simplicity of his answer. "And because lying would have insulted us both." Her breath caught. Something in her expression shifted. She wasn't just listening. She was feeling the weight of his words. Apacha had seen many people in his travels, but few who reacted to honesty with such silent depth. Nalin stepped away from the center of the path and gestured for him to follow. They walked toward the shade of a sturdy oak, away from curious eyes. "Apacha," she said carefully, "when you look at me, what do you see?" He didn't hesitate this time. "A woman who works hard, who creates beauty with her own hands, who doesn't realize how strong she is." Her lips parted slightly. "Strong?" "Yes," he said. "Strong enough to show her heart in her craft. Strong enough to ask for truth, even when it might hurt." The wind stirred, carrying the scent of pine and earth between them. Nalin touched the beadwork on her dress again, but this time with a new kind of pride, as if Apache's words had awakened something long buried inside her. "I didn't expect to meet someone like you today," she whispered. "Neither did one." They stood in quiet understanding, a stillness that promised change. Then, from the distance, the chief's voice echoed, "Nalin, Apacha, come." Their moment ended, but the connection that had begun honest, fragile, real, was now impossible to ignore. Chief Takota stood near his lodge when Nalin and Apacha approached. His arms folded across his chest and his expression stern enough to make even seasoned warriors straighten their backs. A few men nearby paused their tasks, subtly trying to listen in without appearing disrespectful. It was clear that whatever happened next would be remembered by the entire camp. Takota gestured for them to stand before him. "I have spoken with the elders," he began, his voice calm but carrying the weight of authority. "And I have considered your words, horse breeder." Apacha bowed his head slightly in respect. Takota turned his eyes to Nalan. "And I have also considered yours." Nalan shifted nervously. It wasn't easy for her to speak openly about her craft, especially to the chief, even if he was family. Her uncle had always valued strength, discipline, tradition qualities found in warriors and hunters. Creativity, gentleness, and imagination were less appreciated traits in a world where survival took priority. "You two spoke of dresses," Takota said. "Of craft and honesty. Of truth spoken without planning." His eyes narrowed slightly. "I want to see what caused such words." Nalan's breath caught. "You want to see my dresses?" Takota nodded once. "All of them. All of them." The request felt enormous, terrifying, vulnerable. No one had ever asked to see everything. She had made not even her closest friends. Most people overlooked her creations as mere hobbies, distractions unworthy of real attention. Nalan hesitated. Takota raised an eyebrow. "Did you not show one dress to this breeder? Are you afraid to show me what you showed him?" Apacha saw the shame flicker across Nalan's face, and before he could stop himself, he stepped forward. "She showed me her work because she trusted me," he said steadily. "Not because it is unworthy. Her talent is rare. You'll see." Takota stared at him long and hard. Then, to Nalan's surprise, the chief nodded. "Then let me see." The lodge where Nalan kept her work was small and tucked near the edge of the camp, shaded by tall juniper trees. She led them inside, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled back the leather flap. The interior was dim, but the warm glow of a small fire pit cast flickering light on the walls covered in color. Dozens of dresses hung neatly from beams. Buckskin, woven cotton, dyed cloth. Some were simple, designed for daily wear. Others were extraordinary, decorated with beadwork so intricate it looked like painted stories, mountain shapes, rivers, moon phases, symbols of journeys and protection. Each piece carried emotion woven into its structure: patience, pride, gentleness, courage. Takota stepped inside and slowly examined a deep blue dress stitched with silver-white beads representing starlight. His eyes softened despite his efforts to remain composed. "You made all these?" he asked. Ian nodded, folding her hands. "Over many seasons." Apacha walked beside her, admiring each piece with a quiet, supportive smile. He noticed the way she stood straighter with him near, how she breathed easier. Takota touched a garment lightly, as if afraid to damage something sacred. "Why have you kept them hidden?" Nalan swallowed. "Because I thought no one wanted them." Silence hung heavy until the chief spoke again, this time with a gentler tone. She rarely heard from him. "These are not trifles. They are history, heart, spirit. You have been crafting our stories in cloth while believing your gift was small." He turned fully to her. "You have dishonored yourself by hiding this, but you honor our people by making it." Nalan's eyes stung. She had waited years to hear such words. Takota nodded at Apacha. "And you? You saw this worth at a glance?" Apacha didn't hesitate. "I did." The chief held his gaze for a long moment, then gave a single approving nod. "Nalan, your work will be shown at the next gathering. It is time our people learn your name." Nalan's breath trembled with fear, relief, and a dawning pride she had buried for too long. Apacha looked at her, his heart warming at the tears forming in her eyes. This was a beginning, one born from honesty, courage. and a simple question about a dress. The days that followed Takota's approval were some of the brightest Nalan had ever lived. Word traveled quickly through the settlement. Nalan, the quiet one, the one who stitched alone at night, had been chosen by the chief to show her dresses at the next gathering. Women began visiting her lodge to ask about colors, patterns, meanings. Even stern warriors peeked inside out of curiosity, pretending to admire the craftsmanship while secretly trying to understand how they had overlooked her talent for so long. Through all of this, Apacha remained a steady presence, not intrusive, never overstepping, but always near enough to offer help when needed. He fetched supplies from his trading tent, carried heavy bundles of cloth, and even helped move a new wooden frame into Nalan's crafting lodge. Their conversations grew easier, filled with quiet humor and gentle glances that lingered too long. But in the midst of new warmth, a shadow crept across the horizon. One neither of them saw coming. It began with the scouts. At dawn, 2 young warriors rode into camp on sweating horses, dust rising behind them like a warning smoke. Their faces were grave, their voices low as they spoke urgently to Takota. Within minutes, the calm of the settlement shattered. Men armed themselves, women guided children indoors, and the peaceful rhythm of the camp turned sharp and tense. Apache sensed the tension instantly. He found Takota near the center fire, speaking with elders. "What's happened?" Apache asked. The chief turned toward him, his expression heavy. "A rival band has been moving through the northern canyon too close to our boundaries. Their intentions are unclear, but their presence is not a coincidence." Apache's brows drew together. "Are they preparing for trouble?" Takota exhaled slowly. "Perhaps. Perhaps not. But we will prepare as if they are." The camp erupted into activity. Warriors strapped on quivers and sharpened blades. Women gathered food and water, anchoring valuables to prevent loss. Horses, the tribe's lifeline, needed to be secured and carefully managed. If an attack came, they could not afford chaos among the herd. That's when Takota's gaze settled on Apacha. "You understand horses better than most of my men," the chief said. "If the enemy startles them, the herd will scatter. We cannot risk losing them." Apache nodded. "Tell me what to do." "Take 3 men. Guide the herd to the upper cliffs. The paths are narrow, but you know how to move animals with a calm mind. Once they are up there, they will be safe, and whoever tries to reach them will be seen long before they arrive." Apache tightened the straps on his vest. "I'll leave now." Takota placed a hand on his shoulder. "Be careful. You are valuable to this camp today." As Apache turned to gather the horses, he felt a soft hand catch his arm. It was Nalan, her eyes so recently filled with excitement, and hope now held fear. "You're leaving?" she whispered. He nodded. "Just to move the herd. Your people will need the horses if anything happens." Nalan swallowed hard. "It's dangerous up there. If the rival band is nearby, I've ridden worse paths," he said gently. "I'll be careful." Her fingers tightened around his forearm before she realized what she was doing. She let go quickly, embarrassed, but he held her hand this time steady, reassuring. "I'll come back," he promised. She looked at him for a long moment, emotion swirling in her eyes. "I believe you." Apache mounted his horse and rode toward the herd, the wind whipping against his face. Behind him, Nalan watched until he disappeared into the hills, her heart heavy with unspoken fears. The storm was gathering, not a storm of rain, but one of choices, dangers, and moments that would change everything. The path to the upper cliffs wound like a thin ribbon across steep terrain. Apache led the way on horseback, with 3 Apache warriors riding behind him, Tosca, a seasoned tracker, Nayade, young but fiercely loyal, and Chaitan, quiet and sharp-eyed. The herd moved nervously between them, hooves thudding over dry earth, ears flicking at every distant rustle. The air was tense, heavy with the smell of dust and the faint metallic hint of coming conflict. Apacha felt every shift in the horses' bodies. Horses spoke without words, through tremors in their muscles, the twitch of a tail, the rise of their heads toward the horizon. And right now, they spoke of fear. "Easy," Apache murmured, hands steady on the reins. "We're going up, not away." The herd trusted him. They followed Dot. By midday, they reached the narrow ascent. The mountain rose sharply, casting long shadows that cooled the earth beneath it. The path was dangerous. One misstep could send horse and rider sliding down a rocky slope. But Apache rode with calm confidence, dismounting often to guide the animals by hand. His steady presence kept the herd moving. "Trader," Tosca called from behind. "Do you smell that?" Apache paused, sniffing the air. Smoke. Not thick enough to be a campfire. Too faint for it to be from their own settlement. It drifted from the north where the rival band had last been seen. "We need to move faster," Apache said. They urged the horses forward. By late afternoon, the herd reached the first plateau, a sheltered space surrounded by stone outcroppings. It was a natural fortress, exactly the place Dakota wanted. Nayati exhaled with relief. "We made it." Apache shook his head. "Not yet." He scanned the horizon. The northern canyon stretched far into the distance, the sunlight sinking into its cracks and ridges. And then dash movement. Shadows. 3, no 5 figures on horseback. Riders. Coming fast. "Hide the herd," Apache ordered. "Move them behind the ridge." The warriors sprang into action. Apache grabbed the reins of 2 mares and ushered them into the shadow of a rock wall. The plateau suddenly filled with frantic movement, hooves scraping against stone, men breathing hard, horses snorting nervously. Tosca crouched at the edge of the plateau, peering down the trail. "They're coming straight toward us," he hissed. Apache joined him. The riders wore dark paint across their faces. Their posture was aggressive, leaning forward, gripping their weapons. They weren't scouting, they were hunting. "They know the herd is here," Chaitin said quietly. Nayati's hand went to his bow. "Should we prepare an ambush?" "No," Apache said sharply. "We can't risk a fight with the herd this close. If the horses panic, they'll scatter across the cliffs. And if we do nothing," Tosca warned, "they'll take the herd or kill us." Apache's mind raced. He wasn't a warrior. He didn't wear war paint or carry titles. But he understood horses, and he understood the land. He looked at the narrow path below, the loose rocks, the steep drop to one side. An idea formed. Risky, but their best chance. "We control the path," Apache said. "Not with weapons, with the mountain." Tosca's eyes widened in understanding. "You want to cause a rock slide?" "Not a big one," Apache said. "Just enough to block the trail. We can force them to turn back without endangering the herd." Chaitin nodded. "There's a weak section of the ridge above the path." Nayati stood. "Let's do it." They moved quickly but quietly, scaling a short rise to a cluster of boulders and loose stones. Apache positioned himself at the edge, gripping the largest rock. Below, the rival riders drew closer fast, determined. Unaware of the trap forming above their heads, on my signal, Apache whispered. The riders were almost beneath them, now. 4 men pushed with all their strength. The stones shifted, then tumbled, crashing onto the path in a thunderous roar. Horses below reared violently. The riders shouted, scrambling to control them. The path disappeared under a mound of rock and dust. They had no choice but to retreat. The warriors exhaled in relief. Apache looked down at the blocked trail, heart pounding. They had bought time, but the message was clear. This wasn't over. The rival band would come again. And next time, they wouldn't be so easily stopped. Night settled over the valley like a velvet blanket, warm and thick despite the faint mountain breeze. The breeder, Elias, set another log onto the fire, sending a bright column of sparks spiraling upward into the dark. Across the flames, Nera stood with her back to him, brushing dust from her knees, unaware or pretending not to notice. How long his eyes lingered on her. She had changed into the dress again, the same one she had tried on days earlier, the same one that had made him blurt out the truth he had buried for weeks. "I can't stop looking at you." She wore it now like a quiet challenge, as if daring him to look again, or daring him to look away. Elias swallowed hard. She wasn't doing anything special, just smoothing the hem, lifting her braid to tighten the leather tie but on her. Every simple movement carried the power of thunder. When she finally turned, the firelight painted her face in soft amber, sharpening her cheekbones and darkening her eyes until they seemed bottomless. She walked toward him, each step slow and purposeful, not flirtatious, not shy, just certain. "You're quiet tonight," she said, stopping close enough that he felt the warmth of her body. Too quiet. When men grow silent, they are thinking of running, or fearing something. He forced a breath. "Maybe I'm doing both." That made her tilt her head, studying him like she studied tracks in the dirt, patient, precise, seeing things he hoped were hidden. "I don't want you to run," she said softly. "And what if I'm afraid of you?" He asked, trying to make it sound like a joke, though his voice cracked. She didn't smile. She didn't tease. Instead, she stepped even closer, close enough that her dress brushed his knee. Why? He could have lied. He could have given some clumsy excuse. But the truth came uninvited, pulled from him by the gravity of her gaze. "Because every day I feel myself losing something I've held on to for years," he whispered. "The idea that I'm alone in this world, that I can't be hurt if no one is close enough." Her expression softened. "Elias, I am not here to hurt you." "That's the problem," he said for the first time. Her confidence faltered. Her fingers curled slightly, as if resisting the urge to touch him. "Do you think I want something from you?" "No, I only want—" She hesitated, searching for words in a language that wasn't her own. "I only want to stay close. That is all." He felt the ground shift beneath him, the kind of shift a man doesn't survive unchanged. Nera looked away then, just briefly, but in that moment he saw her own fear. Not fear of him. Fear of rejection. Fear of misreading him. Fear that she had taken a step he might not return. "Naira," he whispered, reaching out slowly. His fingers brushed her wrist, warm and trembling. "I don't want you to go anywhere." She drew in a small breath, quiet, but sharp enough to reveal how deeply she felt his words. Then she closed the distance between them, placing her hand over his, guiding it to rest against her waist. The fabric was soft, but her body beneath was strong, steady, real. "This dress," she began. "Yes? You never told me if it truly fits." He smiled, but the emotion behind it ran deeper than desire. "It fits you," he murmured, "the way the sky fits the stars." Something inside her melted then. Not her strength, never that, but the wall she had kept between them. She leaned her forehead against his chest, letting herself rest there, trusting him with her weight, with her breath, with her silence. And for the first time in years, Elias felt something terrifying and precious. He didn't want to run anymore. He only wanted to stay. The night was too quiet for the season. Even the coyotes held their breath somewhere beyond the hills. Elias felt Nera's warmth still lingering on his chest where she had rested her forehead moments earlier. But now she stood beside him, scanning the darkness with a hunter's alertness. "There," she whispered, pointing toward the ridge. Elias followed her gaze. He saw nothing at first, just shadows swallowing the mesquite plants and the black outline of the boulders. But then he caught it, a flicker of movement, a shape too deliberate to be wind. His body tightened. Someone's watching us? Naira nodded once, calm but visibly tense. 3 men. Maybe 4. They've been following since we left the trading post. Why didn't you tell me earlier? He asked. Because you were looking at me, she replied softly. And for a moment, you weren't afraid of anything. He almost laughed at the absurd timing, but fear pushed the sound back down. Who are they? She didn't answer with words. Instead, she pulled from her belt a small bone-carved whistle, a type she used for signaling among her people. But tonight, she didn't blow it. She simply held it between her fingers as if reminding herself she wasn't alone. Scouts from another band, she finally said. Men who don't want peace. They don't want me near you. They don't want us near each other. Her tone carried no fear, only anger, tightly controlled. Elias felt a heat rise in him that wasn't from the fire. Are they here for you or for me? Both, she replied. Because you think with your heart, and I let you close. The weight of her words struck him harder than any threat in the dark. He didn't have time to respond before she touched his arm gently and whispered, "Follow my steps. Stay low." Without waiting, she moved with silent precision, circling away from the fire and guiding him toward a rock formation that would shield them. Elias followed, trying to mimic her light, careful steps. Despite the danger, he felt a strange calm envelop him, a calm born not of bravery, but of trust. Once they were hidden, Naira crouched beside him. The fire flickered behind them, casting long shadows that made the night look alive. They won't attack near fire, she murmured. Too much light. They wait for us to sleep, or for you to be alone, he frowned. Me? You are not a warrior, she said matter-of-factly, though not unkindly. They think you're easy prey. They think I will defend you. They think I care. Elias stared at her. They're right. The admission slipped out before he could stop it, and Naira's breath caught visibly. Her eyes met his dark, intense, shadowed with fear not of the men outside, but of the possibilities inside. I know, she whispered. A branch cracked in the distance. Naira immediately shifted into action. They're moving, she said. We must be ahead of them. But before she could stand, Elias reached out and caught her hand. His grip wasn't tight, just enough to make her look at him. What happens after? He asked. After tonight. After we outrun them. After we survive this. Naira swallowed, her throat bobbing gently. Then we face the truth, she said. The truth about what you feel. And what I feel. And whether we are strong enough to fight what stands between us. Are you? He asked. For the first time, she didn't answer instantly. She looked at him, really looked at him, as if searching for a place to plant her heart. Finally, she whispered, I want to be. Another sound closer. A deliberate footstep. Naira's fingers laced with his, firm and protective. Stay behind me, she said, her voice low and fierce, and as she rose to meet the danger, Elias realized something with a clarity sharper than any blade. He wasn't afraid because of her. He was afraid of losing her. The morning sun spilled gold across the settlement, painting the dusty paths and wooden lodges in a gentle, forgiving light. The rival band had retreated in the night, deterred by the clever maneuvers of Apacha and the warriors, and the herd was safe, grazing quietly atop the cliffs. For the first time in days, the camp exhaled collectively. Relief softening lines of worry on faces both old and young. Elias, the horse breeder known simply as Apacha to the tribe, walked beside Naira, his hand brushing against hers. He had seen her strength in ways he never expected. Not only her bravery in guiding him and the herd, but the cleverness and courage she had shown against the threat in the dark. And he had seen her vulnerability, that rare, delicate side that only revealed itself to those who truly earned her trust. The chief Takoda approached them. His eyes, stern yet approving, scanned both of them. "You have proven your worth to this camp in ways more than physical strength," he said. "You have shown courage, honesty, and loyalty. And you have honored each other." He glanced at Nira. "And your craft, it will be celebrated, not hidden. That is the way of our people now." Nira's chest swelled with pride, her fingers tightening around Elias's hand. "Thank you," she said softly. Apacha nodded. "Thank you, Chief." His gaze shifted to her. "And thank you for trusting me." Nira's lips curved into a small smile. She tilted her head slightly. "I don't regret showing you my dresses," she whispered. "Or asking you that question." Elias chuckled softly. "And I don't regret answering honestly. Though I nearly wished I could take it back in front of your uncle." She laughed a light, melodic sound that made the wind itself pause to listen. "I wouldn't let you." A few days later, the camp was alive with activity once more, but this time it was not for survival, it was for celebration. Nira's dresses were displayed along the lodge walls and open-air racks, a vibrant tapestry of her skill, patience, and imagination. Visitors from neighboring settlements came to admire her work. Even the elders, who had once dismissed her efforts, marveled at her craft. Apacha stood beside her, offering quiet encouragement, lifting a bolt of cloth here, holding a basket of beads there. And all the while, the unspoken bond between them grew, deeper and steadier than any words could convey. When the last visitors departed, the sun dipping low into the horizon, Nira turned to him, her eyes glinting with mischief and warmth. "Do you want to see my newest dress?" she asked. He smiled, already knowing the answer. "I do." She led him into the quiet of her lodge. The dress she unveiled was unlike any before, soft buckskin dyed in a rich, golden hue, stitched with intricate patterns of rivers, mountains, and stars. It told a story of bravery and patience, of trust and connection. And as she lifted the hem, revealing the careful weaving beneath, Apacha felt his heart swell. "It fits," he said gently. "It fits you, and it fits my heart." Nira's eyes softened, and she reached out, letting her hand rest on his. "Then I think this is only the beginning," she whispered. Elias nodded. "It's more than the beginning. It's home." From that day forward, they worked together. Nira's craft flourished, blending tradition and innovation, while Apacha remained by her side not as a traveler, not as a stranger, but as someone who had found a place to stay, someone who had finally found a home. They laughed together, argued over colors and patterns, guided horses, and sometimes simply watched the sun set over the hills, savoring the rare peace they had fought to protect. And each evening, as she donned her latest creation, Nira would glance at him and ask softly, almost teasingly, "Does this dress fit me?" Apacha would smile, heart steady and sure. "It fits my heart perfectly." And for both of them, that was all that mattered.